Hey, hello, how are you? Welcome to another tutorial here on my Rode Studio channel. A few days ago, Gaston Garza told me in one of my publications that I should make a track in the style of Damon Jee, and well, that's what I did. I analyzed the first 10 songs from Damon Jee's Spotify profile to study their structure and arrangements in the production, especially I focused on the song behind us. Let's hear the end result of this production. For the design of the drums, I took the following songs as a reference. This is my rhythmic pattern. Now, I'm going to show you what this indie dance drum box device does. We leave the channel in solo. I'm going to press play and I'm going to change the samples. If we click on the random button, it will randomly select different samples. You can download this device in my patreon.com account and gumroad.com. As for the synth bass sound, I wanted to achieve this style. Now I am going to explain the synth-based synthesis process. I have two synth basses. I am going to deactivate the effects. For this synth bass, I am going to use two instruments, instrument A and instrument B. In instrument A, I am going to use the saw-type oscillator as the sound source. Omnisphere offers us a capture of different oscillators from different synthesizers. In this case, I am using the saw oscillator from the Novation Company's base station synthesizer. In instrument B, I am using a noise-type oscillator. Now let's listen to each of these oscillators. Then we will activate the filter. Important to leave the filter envelope like this. Here is another view of the filter envelope. We activate the filter and lower the cutoff. We activate the arpeggiator where I have this layout at a rate of 1/16 speed. Now we will go to the audio effects. First we start with an amplifier, then we add a glue compressor to squash the signal a bit more and to generate a sound with more punch, and finally we add chorus. As for the MIDI note, it is in A playing with the notes of sol and re. The next instrument is an electric bass. I'm going to open the virtual instrument. Here I am using this electric bass preset. I am applying a high-pass filter and a low-pass filter with this equalizer. Now, let's go with the next instrument, which is the analog. But before I'm going to show you something, Ableton gives us the possibility of placing two instruments on the same MIDI track on a MIDI track. To do this it is very simple. I am going to use the wavetable. I am going to place it here in an empty space. I am going to give it Ctrl+G or Command+G. We go to the chain list option and we are going to click here on Create String. In this part of creating a chain we can place another instrument, for example, the analog. In this way, when we send MIDI signals from our MIDI controller, this signal will go through both instruments, and this is what I did with the instrument on the MIDI track that I have here. Here we have two instruments that are the wavetable and the analog. Let's listen to this instrument. I'm going to turn off the effects to focus on the synthesis. In this case, the issue of wavetable synthesis is very simple. I am going to use an oscillator between a triangle and a saw. In the second instrument, that is the analog here, I am simply going to use the noise oscillator. We turn off oscillators 1 and 2, and it would sound like this. Then we go to the effects. What I am going to do is activate one by one to listen to the transformation of this sound. Before starting with the synthesis of that instrument, I am going to deactivate the effects to concentrate on the synthesis. Now, many people will have the question of why do I have a grouped instrument? What I did here was to leave the effects of the virtual instrument separate, and so I can freeze the MIDI track since it is a virtual instrument external to Ableton. When you freeze it on your computer you will be able to listen to the track even if you do not have Omnisphere 2. Which, by the way, this project, it will be available on my patreon.com and gumroad.com account so that you can download it, and for those who do have this instrument, simply unfreeze it, press the right button and press the unfreeze option. In this way you will be able to manipulate and analyze the effects in detail of this instrument. For the synthesis of this instrument I am only going to use instrument A, whereas a sound source I am going to use the sample mode. The sample I chose is named Mopho Muscle, which means it's a recording of Dave Smith's mopho synthesizer. Now, with the FM tool, what I am going to do is add this sine oscillator, which in this case Omnisphere names as modulator. I am going to add it to the oscillator of my sample, which is going to generate a sum of frequencies, and it is going to give us generate this sound. Next, what I'm going to do is activate the filter. It's important to leave the envelope of my filter like this, where we have the attack and the decay very open. This is going to give us that characteristic of a synth pad. I'll lower the cutoff to listen the reaction of my filter. There is an effect that I really like that the Omnisphere has integrated, which is the radio delay. In this case I am going to activate it inside the virtual instrument. I go to the effects, and in the instrument I am going to assign this effect to it. We deactivate. We activate. Then we go to the effects of this instrument. I have a dynamic multiband on the track where I perform the compression for different frequency bands. In this case I am trying to compress the low frequencies too much. Then I added overdrive to give it some aggression with harmonic distortion, delay and reverb. I have the following instrument. I'm going to turn off the effects and we concentrate on the synthesis. In the synthesis of this instrument I simply used an instrument that is instrument A. As a sound source I am going to use the base station power pulse width modulation sample mode. I used the harmonia tool. We go in here and what we're going to do is activate a new voice, but this voice is going to be an octave up. Let's play it. Now with the harmony tool on. Then what we are going to do is activate the filter. It is important to have the filter envelope like this, and I am going to lower the cutoff. Now what I'm going to do is link LFO2 to the cutoff. And finally, I am going to activate the effects of instrument A, which would be the phaser effect and a chorus echo. In the automations we have two assigned parameters that are the cutoff and the resonance. I'll show you the automations. I got the cutoff and the resonance. We deactivate the visualization of the automations and we go to the effects of this track. I have an equalizer, overdrive and reverb. For this instrument I was inspired by the song behind us. In the synthesis of this sound we are going to use two instruments, instrument A and instrument B. In the sound source I am selecting the sample mode bass station Octavia. Also in instrument B, I am selecting the sample mode where I chose the sampler Metasonic Blaster 1. Now let's just listen to the sound source of the two instruments A and B. We turn on the filter for each of our instruments A and B. We turn on filter A with these settings in the filter envelope and turn on filter B. Now, let's look at the audio effects. There are two sections here, the internal effects of the instrument and the external audio effects found on the channel strip of this same track. Let's first look at the internal effects of the Omnisphere. We go to the effects section. In instrument A I use the smoke effect. With this tool it will thicken the sound a little more, in turn it will give it more strength in the low mid frequencies and low frequencies. In the effects of instrument B, I have the chorus echo effect very similar to the delay effect. The effects that we insert in this section of common will affect instruments A and B. I have the spring effect and a vintage compressor. I have automated the coarse pitch parameter to generate a glide from one note to another like in the song behind us. In the breakdown part of the song I automate the cutoff parameter where it will open up. The high and high mid frequencies of the synth will gradually be heard. In the effects channel of this instrument I start with the pedal using the fuzz option. This will generate distortion and aggressiveness in the mid frequencies to the synth sound. With the multiband dynamic I compress the 3-frequency range in a different way, having even more control of the dynamics of the sound. With the EQ, I select the range of frequencies that I want to be present in the mix of this production, applying the high-pass filter and low-pass filter frequency cut. Lastly, I add the echo audio effect, which is practically a delay. With the utility tool I am automating the gain to control the volume level it generates when opening the cutoff, and the reverb effect. And well, we come to the end of this video tutorial. I hope you liked it and above all that it has met your expectations with the final result of this production. See you in the next video.